Good morning, everybody. Yet another new hat style I'm rocking. Anyways, barn chores are already done this morning. It's kind of chilly and there's just nothing exciting happening. So this morning I'm gonna go clean out my basement because I'm gonna try to turn that into like proper food storage. I'm trying to get rid of some of my leather working stuff that I don't need anymore, just like benches and desks and stuff. So I'm trying to make more room. But I thought, while I'm doing that, because I have all my paint and everything downstairs, I want to fix this, well, I'll just show it to you. It's a decorative piece that I'm going to hang on the front of the barn. And my neighbors brought it to me last fall, I think it was. So some of you might not know. And this is actually a video that I've had people request for me to make. So I'm going to just go ahead and touch on it at least a little bit today. But this piece was brought to me by my neighbors. I actually grew up, and where I live now was actually part of the farm over here. So I will actually run to the top of the hill and we'll talk about this, but I want to show you this real quick first. So this piece was made and given to my grandfather. I'll try to sit it up here. Many years ago, and it used to hang on his barn, and obviously the little farmer guy used to have a head and it wasn't rotted at the bottom, and it was painted to look like his barn, which was white with red trim. So they gave it to me. They thought, this, might mean something to you. And it really did, because I don't remember the person that made it for my Pap, but they made it so that this little guy looked, like him. But if you flip it around, it's in much better shape. So I think I'd like to just like trim this bottom off a little bit and paint it and make it look nice. And then, I'm going to leave it white with the red trim. And unfortunately, since the little farmer guy doesn't have his head, I think I might just take him off altogether, because it just doesn't seem right to leave a headless farmer on there.
A headless farmer.
Since I have to climb up there and fix the door, and I have to be on a ladder anyways, I thought I might fix up this barn and I could hang it too, because he always had it hung above his barn. And so I thought that would be super cute and a nice little way to remember. So I think I'm going to do that today. Maybe. We'll see what I get into. But this is definitely on the list of things I want to get done. Okay. Let's take a walk up the hill real quick. Okay. So we are walking up the road here so I can give you guys a better view. So it had been requested that I make a video talking a little bit about my grandfather, and I will touch on that a little bit because, as some of you know, my grandparents are one of the biggest reasons that I am the way I am, especially my grandfather. I spent a ton of time with them when I was little, and always said that my Pap was my favorite person in the whole entire world. My grandma used to tell people that as well. And it was true. I would wait for him at the door. He'd bring me home usually a banana or an apple out of his lunchbox. We'd eat supper and off to the farm we would go. So, well, actually, no, this brush is here. You can't see. So we're gonna walk over here. Whew. The wind is getting me in the face. So the farm that we live on was actually a hayfield. Sometimes it grew oats, but most of the time it was just hay. This field across here that is the neighbors that we grazed on all year was also a hayfield. I'm gonna turn you around real quick and show you guys. So this, and down the back side was a hay field, and all of this was open hay field. Over here's the farm. I don't know if you could see, like right there is the barn. That's the barn that little barn I showed you was, you know, meant to replicate. It used to be white with red trim. Here's some of the view I was telling you guys about. But actually, if you walk to the top of that hill over there, you can see the entire town of Leechburg, and it is so pretty. One of these days we'll do that. And then, yeah, back here is, this was all cow pasture down in here, which is, it's all overgrown. And this part does not belong to us. Yeah, so you really can't see much through here, but this was all open and it was all a cow pasture. So, but over here, right at the end of this, where my fence starts, is where our property starts. Our survey was mostly marked by trees. So, I have to get back up here and put another zip tie on that PVC. Anyways, this is our little bit of land. We have pretty much equal parts open and wooded. There's Kelly. There you can see a little bit of the view. Mostly that's West Leechburg there. And then the cemetery, actually where my grandparents are, is right there. But yeah, we own down into the woods. And this is the homestead. So this property, when I was just young, you know, I used to just go wander it, just go walk it. My pap had that whistle, you know, he'd stick his two fingers in his mouth and he'd whistle, and that's when I knew it was time to come in. I just wander around aimlessly. I remember specific trees and just certain landmarks, and it was so peaceful. It still is very peaceful out here. It's very quiet. As you could see, I mean, I'm on the road. I'm on the road. There's, yeah, it's quiet. Usually we sled on the road because, you know, it's seldom plowed, but they did a good job this year keeping up with it. You know, I used to go with my pap. It's funny how things stick with you. We used to go fix fence, and he would take, you know, his weed eater and stuff like that, and I wanted to clean the fence, so he would give me a pair of needle nose pliers, because you know how they have the wire cutter part. I used to cut the rose bushes off of the fence line with the needle nose pliers, and to this day one of my favorite fence cleaning tools is a pair of needle nose pliers. I always have them, or my multi-tool, because it has needle nose pliers. It's like my favorite tool. Little things like that stick with you. Okay, so are you guys ready to take a trip down memory lane with me? Like I said before, this video was requested that I do, you know, a little bit about my history with farming and my time with my grandparents, because I always talk about them and how they've influenced and shaped the person that you see here today. First of all, two sets of grandparents, both massively important to me. Today, we are going to talk about one set of grandparents, and then I will talk about the other set in a different video. They both had massive influences on me, but in two different ways. So this is where my love of farming came from. And the other set of grandparents is where I got a lot of the canning and things like that from. So two different grandparents, very, very special, both of them. This is just one set, so I just want to make sure I establish that. This set of grandparents is the grandparents whose farm I grew up on, and our homestead here is still 10 acres of the original 116. I always say I was looking to get more acreage, because living on 10 acres after living on 116 is like living in a backyard. And so, you know, but this is home. However, the homestead, the original farm, looks massively different, and I gave you a little bit of a view of it today, and I know it's snow covered and everything, but you're gonna see the difference. Hold on, let me see, I got a good picture. This is the same view that I just took you and showed you. So we were up here on this hill. This is the same road. So you can see how much different it looks. This is all overgrown here now. And this side of the road is very overgrown as well. But that's a little bit of what the farm looked like. These are like the fence posts that I was telling you about, how he would do the conduit. Some of those were wooden posts that he would split from telephone poles. And I don't even know where he got the telephone poles from, but he always had a small pile of telephone poles that he would split up and, you know, make fence posts out of. But he also liked to sit his round bales on top of them because it would keep it up off the ground. Yeah. So I'm trying to go through some of these pictures because I don't want to show you guys all of them. However, and I'm trying to also go in chronological order. So I guess if I'm going in chronological order, I will show you this picture. Like I said before, my Pap was basically like my best friend in the whole entire world, since he was my A1 from day one. So that would be me and him snuggled up on his recliners. I don't know if you can see. And he would go to work and come home, and basically we would eat dinner and then just spend the rest of the night together. At this point in time, they lived down the hill from the farm. This farm had belonged to his parents and grandparents, I believe, before that. And there was a small house up here, but his mom lived in it. And so we would drive from the hollow, we called it the hollow house. We would drive from there and come up here. And if you think this road looks sketchy, you ain't seen nothing yet. That bottom hill was full of big, deep ruts. And he had this little, I have a picture somewhere, and this little Toyota truck that was his work truck. And it had piles of paperwork and stuff in the front. And then the back of the truck had, I can remember the smell of it. It had pipe fittings and everything else because he worked for a petroleum company. And so there was so much weight in the back of that tiny little Toyota truck that was just two-wheel drive. He could put that thing anywhere. That man, he got a laugh out of driving. He knew what he was doing. He was always in control, but it would scare the snot out of people. And he just thought that was the funniest thing. My Pap was a big character, So historically, we spent a ton of time together, and I'm just flipping through these to see what I can find. I do not have all of the really great albums that had a lot of the really good pictures of him farming and stuff like that, but I do have a couple real winners, and so those are the ones that I will show you guys. But yeah, if I could just paint a picture for you, he was the biggest character. He was a clown. He was about 6'3"-ish, I think, give or take. Jet black hair, crystal blue eyes, and just pure happiness most of the time. But don't make him mad, because that was serious and you didn't want to experience that. I didn't ever really make him mad. One time I recall really upsetting my Pap, and that's when the pony that I'm about to show you the picture of, she was in with the cattle, and he had a split rail wood fence, as you can see here. And the bull, it was right here where it happened. The bull, she was right up here by this fence, and the bull like pushed her into the fence, and she got a big splinter in her hip. I pulled it out, but I was so upset at this bull, and I was about this big when this happened. Like, this actually could be the same weekend that it happened. I was 5 years old in this picture, but I remember so blatantly being so crushed and so upset and so mad at this big bull. I ran in and I grabbed the lead rope that had the stud chain at the end, and I came out and I was in there whacking this bull in the head with this stud chain, trying to get him to leave my pony alone because he hurt her. My Pap was irate. He'd come in there and scoop me up. He's like, "You can't go in there with that bull. He's gonna, you know, hurt you." And yeah, so what can you do? Emotional young kid, you don't know any better, and you know, how dare you hurt my little pony. Anyways, here is probably the best picture I have. I don't know if you guys can see. That's me and my Pap on his International 584 and his Vermeer round baler. And right here was the farm dog Zeus. This was my favorite tree on the farm. This was a horse chestnut tree, and in the summer it just came alive and buzzed with bees. But you can see me right here, and that's where I spent my summers. I spent my summers on that tractor. I grew up in the wheel well of that tractor, literally. I remember he used to take the sheepskin that was on the seat, and he put it in that wheel well, and he plunked me there, and we would go bale hay, mow hay, and the humming of the tractor would just lull me to sleep. And so he would farm with his arm like this, me sleeping in that wheel well. And so, yeah, that's how I grew up. So that's a lot of the reason why I am the way I am today, is just because those were some of my fondest memories. Now, of course, there was also the other side. My grandparents really loved to dress me up and put me in beauty pageants, and he was also massively proud of me. They both were massively proud of me for doing these beauty pageants, and I actually do have a couple, I had won a couple titles and stuff like that. My Grammy would sew me all the dresses and all the costumes and all the outfits, and she took such pride in that. She was really great at it, and that's where I kind of picked up my sewing habits. Although I picked that up later in life, I wish I would have picked it up earlier when she was still around to help me, because sewing, when you are just picking it up on your own, can sometimes be a bit daunting. But she was a master at being able to cut patterns and put them together. Of course, she grew up making her own clothes. So she would tell me stories of how they used to get the flour sacks and stuff like that, and used to make their clothes out of those. And she usually got hand-me-downs of the nicer things, so she had to make her own stuff of if she wanted anything new, cute dresses and whatnot, she had to make. So she grew up knowing how to sew. But yeah, so there was two sides of me, and the one side was the farmer girl, and then the other side of me, and it's funny because I am still this way today, just not as much. I'm much more the farmer girl. But here's some pictures of me at a beauty pageant, and Grammy sewed this gown, and that's Pap up there, of course. There I am on stage. They used to put my hair's hopeless. It's thin and fine. They used to put my hair in permanent wave rods to sleep in overnight to get that. So that's where that came from. My hair's not naturally like that. But yeah, so he would always, okay, so here, I'll show you some more pictures. This couldn't be more accurate. There's me in a gown that Grammy made me, and there's me with my horse Ruby. So, the two sides of Kira on one page. And then this right here, I was in ballet and dance as well. And this is my grandfather's mother, Grandma. And she is the person who I first experienced a canned item from. We moved into her house when I grew up. So from 6th grade on, I lived in her house, and there was, down in the basement, there was a little tiny door. If you would open it up, it was almost like a crawl space. It was a root cellar, essentially, and there were shelves in there, and nobody ever really went in there, but I did. And I found these jars of pickled peppers, and I was like, what's this? It says it's from a million years ago. And my mom checked the lid, and she was like, yeah, it's fine. So popped open that lid, and I remember distinctly that first snap of that pickled pepper, and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. So that's where I kind of got the love of canned goods, although that was massively ignited with my other set of grandparents who canned tons of stuff. So, okay, I think that is the majority of the pictures I have out of this album anyways. Most of it after that just goes into high school pictures. So yeah, again, I think this was my first day of kindergarten, and that's the barn there that I showed you guys. You couldn't see it, but it was red. And this is just later, both my Grammy and Grandpa. And I think this is where my love of wallpaper came from, because every room of her house had this awesome, you know, different wallpapers. And yeah, it's funny how things leave their mark on you and you don't really think about it until you're older and you're like, ah, yeah, that's where that came from. So I don't know. I hope this is a fun video. It's a little bit different. It's just a trip down memory lane. You know, sometimes it can jerk the tears. Honestly surprised that I've held it together this long. I'm typically a pretty emotional person when it comes to that. So this was kind of a difficult video to do. However, I'm very glad I was able to do it because, like I said, it just gives you a little bit of perspective as to who I am and where I came from. I had pictures of his cows in here somewhere. I don't know where. This was the foal that we bred out of my one good mare I had. There's a picture of him holding it somewhere. Ah, there's a picture of me and him riding. That was my good horse Ruby, my little pony Goldie. I have lots of stories about Goldie. One time she ran over my back, literally. I was walking her up a hill and I slipped and I fell and she used me as a carpet. I came home, my Grammy was like, why do you have hoof prints on your back? Don't worry about it, I'm fine. Those are the farm kids' experiences though, right? That's what set us farm kids apart from the rest, because we were rugged and we were left to our own devices a lot of time. I remember Pap mowing the Timothy hay, and I used to tell my kids that hay was like 5 foot tall, and they're like, no, it wasn't. And then we go mow hay now and they see hay that's the size of the height of the hood of the tractors, and they're like, oh, I see. But when he would mow it, I would run behind the tractor, and I just remember feeling like I was in a tunnel, and I thought it was the coolest feeling ever. Or sitting underneath the catalpa trees in the middle of summer watching him rake the hay and holding on to like a jug of iced tea, waiting for him to swing by and need a drink, you know. All of those things, those are why I am the way I am today. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I probably won't do a whole lot more like that unless you guys are interested. I will touch on videos with my other set of grandparents who did all the canning and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you guys in the next video. Bye.